Hello everybody. So today's lesson is all about adding and subtracting decimals. We're going to do a review lesson on one of my favorite things. I don't know why I love this. I just really like adding and subtracting decimals. So if we have a problem that looks like this, where we have numbers going across here, such as 0.42 plus 0.35, or otherwise known as 42 hundredths plus 35 hundredths. The best way to do this is to stack our decimals in the standard algorithm way. So I'm going to put 42 hundredths on top, and with addition you can do it in either order, plus 35 hundredths. Now, one thing that's important when you are stacking your numbers is that the decimal place is always aligned. And that's going to come into play in a lot of the other types of problems we're going to look at. We're going to mostly look at addition problems, but this applies to subtraction as well. So, first off, I've got 42 hundredths plus 35 hundredths. So I always start with the ones. 5 plus 2 makes 7. 4 plus 3 makes 7 as well, and then keep our decimal place. So 42 hundredths plus 35 hundredths equals 77 hundredths. Okay, here's where it's going to get a little bit more tricky, where we have 2 tenths plus 16 hundredths. If I stack my numbers like so, taking note of where the decimal place is, I now have kind of a space here that's just kind of floating. I'm going to add in a 0 because I know what we talked about yesterday. When you have 2 tenths, that's the same as saying you have 20 hundredths. So adding that 0 there doesn't change the value of this 2. The 0 is more of a placeholder. So I can continue on adding with my standard algorithm. 6 plus 0 is 6. 2 plus 1 is 3. Carry that decimal point down. 36 hundredths. Okay? The placeholder is very important because we wouldn't want to add 6 plus 2 because they're in different place values. That would be 6 hundredths plus 2 tenths. And some people might add them both as hundredths or both as tenths, and it just doesn't work. Let's look at some more examples here. So now I've got some numbers in the whole place value, so the ones place value, because that comes right next to the decimal point but to the left. So we do the same thing as we did when we were just adding decimals. So if I have 1 and 34 hundredths, and I'm adding 1 and 64 hundredths, I just want to make sure that my decimal places are aligned. And now I can go on to adding. 4 plus 4 makes 8. 6 plus 3 makes 9. Keep the decimal place. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 and 98 hundredths. Okay, let's look at another one. This one has a number in the tens place and nothing in the hundredths place. And this one has nothing in the tens place. So how do we align this? Well, let's start with the first number here. 13 and 6 tenths plus 2 and 22 hundredths. So here's where it gets tricky. Wherever your decimal place is, that should be aligned with the decimal place of your other number. So now I have 2 ones, so that should be aligned with the 3 ones in the number 13. And now I've got 2 tens, 2 tenths, and 2 hundredths. Now, in this case, I'm going to add a 0 in the hundredths place, just like we did in one of our earlier problems. That is a nice placeholder. I could also add a 0 here, but this looks more like what we've done in the past, where we're just adding tens and ones, and we know that it would just be 1 plus nothing, so I wouldn't if I did add the 0, it wouldn't change anything, but I'm just going to keep the 0 over here because this is more important to be a placeholder. 2 plus 0 makes 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. Carry the decimal, 3, 4, 5. And 1 plus 0 is 1. So now our answer becomes 15 and 82 hundredths. So far I haven't had to do much carrying of tens or ones. So let's see what happens in this next problem here. I've got 4 and 3/10 plus 37 and 64 hundredths. I'm going to align it just the same. I can put 4 and 3/10 first, and then take note of where the decimal point is, because the decimal point should always be aligned. The 7 is in the ones place, so that should align with the 4. So it becomes 37 and 64 hundredths. I'm going to add in a 0 here to the hundredth space. Could I add a 0 here? I could. It wouldn't change anything, but I will this time. 4 plus 0 makes 4. 6 plus 3 makes 9. Carry the decimal point. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So in this, I'm going to carry the 10. 3 plus 1 makes 4. So my answer is 41 and 94 hundredths. Okay. This time, I'm going to change things up a bit. Now we're going to do some subtraction problems. So let's do 13 and 62 hundredths minus 11 and 1/10. So that would align the same as we did with the addition problem, okay? So I'm going to always start with the number on the left with subtraction, just like when you're only adding whole numbers. So we have 13 and 62 hundredths minus 11 and 1/10. Okay, so the decimal points have to align, so I'll put my decimal point here, 11 and 1/10. Here's the case where I'm going to add in a 0 in the hundredth space. Do I have to? No, it doesn't change the value if I do. 2 minus 0 is 2. 6 minus 1 is 5. Carry the decimal point. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So that just comes to 2 and 52 hundredths. Okay, let's do one more of those. Let's do 40 and 22 tenths. Take away 9 and 9 tenths. All right. So again, I'm going to align them up and down, 40 and 22 hundredths. Take away 9 and 9 tenths, so 9 ones, 9 tenths. I'm going to add in a 0 there as a placeholder. 2 minus 0 is 2. 2 minus 9 can't happen, so I would borrow from the next place over, just like I would with 100 in a whole number situation. So here's one of those cases where I can't borrow from the 0, so I have to go to the tens place and borrow a 10. So I'd be left with 3 tenths. And I'm going to distribute that 10, and I'm going to give 9 ones to the nines place, and I'm going to give 10 tenths to the tenths place, plus that extra 2 tenths. So this would become 12 tenths now. So 12 take away 9 I can now do. So 12 minus 9 would be 3. Carry that decimal place. 9 minus 9 is 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. So my answer becomes, I'll write it in a different color, 30 and 32 hundredths. Okay, I'll do one more just like that. It's really review of all addition and subtraction, not just decimals, because the only thing that changes is you have a decimal place in there. It's just more numbers, and the decimal place always stays in the same spot. So if I have a number like 13, I'm liking 13 today, guys. 13 and 24 hundredths minus 8 and 64 hundredths. Then it would align like this, 13 and 24 hundredths minus 8 and 64 hundredths. I got my decimals in the same spot. Ones are aligned with ones, tenths are aligned with tenths, hundredths are aligned with hundredths, and I had no tens in the ten space here. 4 minus 4 is 0. I'll do this in a different color. 0. 2 minus 6 can't happen, so that's when I go next door. And I borrow from the ones place. So I'm going to borrow 1, 1, and I'd be left with 2 ones. And I'm going to give 10 tenths to the 2 tenths so that they become 12 tenths. So now I can do 12 minus 6 tenths would be 6 tenths. Carry the decimal point, same spot. 2 minus 8 I can't do, so I'm going to go next door and borrow from the tens place. So now I have no tens left, and the 2 ones become 12 ones. 12 minus 8 would be 4. So now there's 0 minus 0 would just be 0, so my answer is 4 and 6 tenths. And I can add the 0 just for fun, but it does not change the value of my number. You can rewatch this video as many times as you like. If you have more questions about this or want more examples, come see me at office hours. I miss you guys. Have a happy Wednesday.